Okay, my little shampoo is on. It's been a long time. Hi, little shampoo. How you doing there? Ready to record Amma's beautiful voice? I am a mother. I have a very beautiful son. I was listening to this beautiful song that manifested from my heart, and it consoled me, gave me comfort at the time I needed it when I was in America, living with my family, my little cats, our little greeny boy, very colorful, beautiful bird, full of pain and suffering, and he would sit on the cage and do his thing, and was just playing the guitar and wanted to bless the bird. So I just started strumming, and I thought maybe he's like a son and he perceives me as his mother. He loved to hear my voice. I would just make up some songs and sing for him, and he would turn his head here and he would give me a feeling of a motherhood, because I felt he was comforted. He used to be a very angry bird, frustrated, and I just loved having an experience with a tiny little bird that can perceive your love that way. It was very beautiful, and I think as a son he grew me up as a mother. I'm not sure if I should sing this song right now. It's kind of late in the night, and so I was listening to this song again and recreating my memories of how I felt even when I had all the family around, and I felt lonely, rejected, and alone. And I prayed. It's kind of a hereditary coming from my family of so-called suffering women. And all they have is, I guess, some kind of a spiritual anchor to hold on to. But if I recall, every one of them had this very sad energy that they carried as a burden. I'm sure they felt no one understood them. They were alone, probably very lonely, and all the time cried when they got a chance to process anything, I guess. But they all had some kind of God figure that they held on to. They prayed, they sang, they had some rituals, I guess some mantras and some prayers. Yeah, I'll skip singing the song right now. It is just the word amma. I just kept singing and repeating the word amma, and it comforted me as I got in touch with the mother in me. It gave me confidence and it gave me strength. Once you become a mother, I think there is a significant amount of ego that you carried a child and gave birth to it, bore all the pains. Yes, but at a very high level of creating some life, creating a body, creating someone who looks like you. It's a very deep experience of intimacy with life itself and, of course, with God. Because when a child is in pain, you either cry out to your mother, you cry out to God, right? I remember crying out to God mostly because my mother wasn't around to cry out to her, nor did she have the ability to be what she needed to be. I guess that kind of stimulated this a forced app, right? A forced part of myself. A woman is always seeking to be recognized for what she is, but sometimes it gets complicated. It's complex in nature, and no one wants to be around that kind of an intense energy. Or probably there is fear to attempt loving a person like that. But it's an honor to be a mother. And children, I hope and pray, also experienced that honor to have a mother, to have an experience with her, to have an intimacy that comforts them, guides them, strengthens them, understands them. If a mother has had the strength to give birth to a child, she also has the strength to mold and guide and love. I think it's possible. Doesn't matter where she came from, doesn't matter the previous generations' patterns and habitual perception of what mothers were. Which takes me back to my grandmother. It's very interesting. The story is complex scenarios and characters and the surroundings. And it took me back to my grandmother as I was listening to the song and praying for my mother. Ooh, I have seen her suffer just mental torture all the time. But she had a very supernatural strength to cope with it all. She never really complained personally, but it was hard to get along. There was no person there to exhibit behaviors of a normal human being, leave alone a good mother or a good woman. She was quite worldly. She had this one part where, like you said, she prayed to God. She had some kind of a anchor she held on to that kept her going through all her deep sorrows, deceptions, lies, etc., etc. I'll get to my mother's mother soon. But before that, I would like to talk about my father's mother, my grandmother. Because I was praying for my mother, and I was praying that God release her from this jail. She's lived long enough in this loneliness and being all alone and pretending to be very strong. I kind of know her. I love her, and I was praying that God saves her, takes her back home, forgives her, loves her, gives her the experience of His presence, and touch her head and say, I love you, I forgive you. And I started to cry, thinking, oh my God, if my prayers are answered, I'll be a motherless child. And that's what started all this processing. So God bless all the children out there that are without mothers for whatever reasons. God bless them with the strength to move on and live on. So coming back to my grandmother, her name was Amma. The mountains that is called Parvati Valley, I think it comes from there in the Himalayas. She was like that. She had this big energy of a mountain. Like she can take anything, she can bear anything. And I guess she had a slight ego about it. The nicest person I have ever met in my life. Even my mother complimented her, saying as a mother-in-law she never ever showed any grudge or ill-treated her. She was always very kind to her. I'll remember those words. So they lived in Mumbai. At that time it was called Bombay. And in Matunga, near Sion. It was a pretty little place filled with Tamil people, Tamilians, and there was this little building. It was called Manibhavan. And people might have heard about it. Excuse me. God bless the mothers. Excuse me. So there was this building called Mani Bhavan. Very sweet, tiny little building. It was a 2-story building. In India, it's called ground floor and then the first floor. In the West, there is no concept of ground floor. It's just first floor and then second floor. So there was 2-story building, and they had kind of built it like a posh agraharam. It was posh, but it was very congested because it was Mumbai. That's why it was posh. But it was built like an agraharam, like a village style. One house, there was a small hallway. There was a small hallway, kind of like, I guess, like 6 feet wide, and on both sides there were houses, all with attached walls. So I guess there were like 10 houses on each side. I don't recall what was on the other side, but in the front there was this big garden and there was this big gate. That was the ground floor, and mostly it was filled with these Tamilians. They all had their lives. They were not poor. They had their jobs. It was amazing, the chaos and the contentment they had living like that. Even on the first floor there were some owners living. I think they were Gujaratis, North Indians, big rooms. I visited my grandmother a few times. I didn't have a big bulky relationship with my grandparents. My parents liked to be a little aloof. We had a different house in Mumbai where I was born and brought up. So, and they all got along well. They loved that building. The community existed for many, many generations. It was amazing. It was kind of a dysfunctional intimacy, I guess, that existed between each other and within the families. So there was one room. Our house was the first house on the right. My grandfather's house. It was a small hall, very small hall, and then it led to there was an opening, no door, and it led to another half the size of the hall, another room with some shelves on the walls, and in a little like a water area at the corner. On this side, an open kitchen, just again like a 6 feet wide, very small house. Think about it now. Everybody is crazy about 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. Very interesting story. And in those days, even if they had good job and good money, that's how they lived. Very, very simple, compressed lifestyle, very content, very active, socially active, spiritually active, professionally active, personally active. So that was where my father was born. He was a free spirit, loved his mother, loved his mother. Not his father though, that's a different story. We're all about mothers here. So So she had a son and a daughter. My father was the eldest son, and he had an elder sister who got married when they were older and moved to Delhi. So my eldest aunt, I didn't see her around that much. A couple of times I've met her. But my father was there in that house until he was like in his 30s, early 30s, before he got caught up in the whole marriage thing. He didn't want to. He was a free bird, free spirit, like he said. He was always there for his mother, helping, and then having his own free life, freestyle, freelance living lifestyle. Very smart he was. He could live off with his charm and his mother's love. And I have experienced, like I said, only a few times being there, and it was terrifying. The tiny little soul in me was terrified to even stay over in that house, because after my father and my aunt, they had many more children. My grandmother had 16 miscarriages, I believe. Well, they called it abortion, but it's not. I think it was miscarriages. Then they had, after 15 years, my father had another brother, another sister. And then the last one, why I'm talking about this is what my grandmother would have gone through throughout the whole experience of getting pregnant all the time and giving birth to these children. Like I said, she was a lovely woman. She had so much love in her heart. But the last child, she had some weird psychotic habits, I guess. Well, I'll go into the details. She would eat a whole bunch of rice, like just raw rice, and then drink water. Don't know why. Probably she was hungry, or she didn't have the help around to feed her, I'm not sure. She never seemed like a crazy woman to me. She always knew what to do. She was always there. So she had this weird habit, it seems, that she would eat this handful of rice and then she would drink some water. And what happened was the baby was floating in too much water in the belly, and when they tried to deliver her, he was born as a blue baby. They used to call it that, and usually they don't survive. But somehow it was a miracle, and at that time it was a miracle that he survived, and they named him Sri Krishna after a god's name. And he was completely mentally handicapped. And again, as a little girl, it was terrifying to go to that house with him around. It was chaos. There was my grandfather's bombastic domination, yelling. People would sleep under the cot, There was no room. Everybody was just on top of each other. My grandmother was always cooking food. I don't know where these mothers got the strength from. Always on their toes doing something. Their bodies were shattered. I mean, you can imagine, after all that happened to their bodies. Where did they get that strength to keep going, keep feeding, keep loving. Never once she raised her voice against the children. No, even that, I think it's kind of like a weakness, because the father's behavior is dominating, so I guess the mother didn't have any say or any space to grow the children up in a positive way, no support at all. So all she could do was just love them, feed them, bless them. She blessed me profusely. She loved me. I'm very blessed, even that few interactions, to have been blessed by my grandmother. But I never wanted to be a woman like her. I would not choose that. My father also loved her, but he would never want to be in the house because of the out of control situation. The story is, my grandfather was a very aggressive energy, dominate over the pious woman, and there was no room there. There was no privacy per se at all. But he would come from work anytime and every time he wants. He would be forcing her to have sex with her, and children would see it, people around would see it. He would kick her with his leg and force her to submit herself to his sensual pleasures. I guess she didn't have any other choice. And my father would get mad at her and go and yell at her. Again, the son having this energy of hating the mother. On one side, you love her so much that you're not able to help her, you're not able to see her happy, you're not able to see her not suffer. Nobody wants to see a mother suffer. No one. Whether you hate her or love her, no child can tolerate to see the mother cry or suffer. And he would go ask her, don't you have any sense? Why don't you just oppose it? Why don't you stop this? He was a grown-up man by then, so anyway, I don't think she had anything to say except smile and cry and just move on. God bless her soul. I think she had an immense energy and of love and forgiveness. But again, I don't think it is a credit that a woman should carry around. It was grace of God, blessings of God, strength from a supernatural realm that she could tolerate all this and still move on. She died at an early age. Not very early, but maybe late 50s. My father's pulse went down. He was heartbroken. But she somehow got freedom from all that. She took care of that retarded uncle. Oh my God. I would just see her slog for this child. He was, couldn't do anything. You had to do everything for his. I didn't have any motor skills, so she had to literally, for many years, until he was in his 30s, she had to take care of him. She was just babysitting him until before my uncle, my other uncle, took him. His wife had some rehabilitation program, and he only wore like he was he was blessed in his late 40s. I mean, he lived for a long time. He lived till I think around 50 years. I think retarded that way. Unbelievable karma. But until my uncle took him, she was the one. He would eat so much food in a plate full of rice and buttermilk and whatnot. He would eat on his own. People like that are, they can do, like I think they are sexually aware and they eat food. They know how to live. And there was another thing about this retarded uncle. I'm talking about all this because this is a jam-packed family full of that ancient energies that was compressed into one family. Can only imagine all kinds of people, all kinds of energies, all kinds of mental states, all kinds of, you name it, it was there. All levels of sin, levels of spiritual war. And but this uncle, this Sri Krishna, we used to call him Shikish. We would be so scared we'll run away from him all the time. Later on I got used to it, but my father, as his oldest brother, was an absolute angel to him. Anna means elder brother. He not only recognized him every time he came to the house, he would hold his hand. They had this absolute pure love that they shared. And for a retarded person whose brain is supposed to be completely retarded, when I watched him respond to my father's love, it touched my heart to the deepest core. I was proud of my father for that. He learned a lot. Not a bit of fear. He would hold his hand. He would not leave his hand. He would call him Anna, Anna. And they shared this love of music. It was adorable. My father was a collector of a lot of music, like they had in records in those days, black records. I told you he had a lot of hobbies, a lot of friends. The freelance, he had a social life outside that the tiny little hell house. He would bring these new records and ask him, "Do you want to listen to this music?" And he'll be so excited. And he had a good sense of rhythm, believe it or not. That retarded mind could put rhythm perfectly to the music. And for hours, until my father's gone or they switch it off, he would be standing right by the recorder, and he would be listening to the music. What a blessing. So coming back to my grandmother, she blessed him a lot. She took care of him. She would just have to do everything for him. And he would get these seizures. Sometimes I remember seeing him one time. Oh my God, the chaos was absolutely shocking. And I would just stand in one corner just watching the whole drama, terrified to the core. But they will be handling, they'll put this key in his mouth so he doesn't hurt himself and give him some. He was always on medication. If I remember, she would powder these tablets and put it in water and give it to him. He never hurt anybody. He was a very gentle soul, actually, in that body. Anyway, karma, the karma of that family, it's amazing. So it didn't stop there, isn't it? I was there witnessing all this as I grew up. the same way, I guess, somewhat secluded, somewhat lonely, somewhat feeling out of place all the time, and kind of just put there to watch all this, learn. Uh, because I carry it too, isn't it? You carry your family's, everything from generations. And you have a choice to learn from it, become what you can be the best out of all that. It is not true that you just, become what your ancestors had become. It is time now, I think, for people like me, my kind, I guess, womankind, to be able to come free of all that, create sons and daughters full of virtues and characters that reflect God's presence and love for each other. Absurd, absolutely absurd dominance and submission, both from both sides of a man and a woman. I'm hoping and praying that we've come a long way and it's reaching a place of perfect balance. We will see. But that's the goal. That kind of love. We don't want that kind of love. Accepting a vulgar, degenerated, perverted, violent, angry kind of love. You don't want that, But she was a very peaceful woman. An angel, I would say. An angel came, suffered, showed me, well, this is my life. Do you think you can change? You can change yours? I started reflecting on these way later in my life, but these little experiences actually helped me cope with what I was going through. My parents fought all the time, but they loved each other, and there was that little bit of that energy carried forward. I hated that my mother always seemed to hate my father. I hated that. I loved my father. I loved my mother too. She was so beautiful. I mean, she is so beautiful. And she was so talented. She knew what to do. She was a finance manager of the house. She cooked well. I came. That feeding people comes very, very strong in our family. And talking about my mother, my grandmother, my mother's mother, will say goodbye to my father's mother. God bless her soul. Like I said, I'm very grateful and thankful for the little love I experienced with her. But actually, I should say the story because once I went to her house and she's grabbed me. I was a tiny little girl. I remember this very well. And she put me on her lap. She had this big belly, poor thing. And they wore these 9-yard saris at that time. She had this big botu. I would be watching her and she would allow me. She would have her bath. I forgot to mention this. They had attached, shared bathrooms. They didn't even have a bathroom in the house. Like I said, they had this one little corner where they had tap coming. That would be used for everything. God bless the hygienic level, but like I said, this retarded uncle would piss there. I mean, children can piss there if you want. But if you have to go number two, you have to go to this a shared bathroom that was across the house somewhere. There were like I don't know. There was one bathroom for each house, but anyway. So she would, shower, come back, wear her sari. She would put Vicks, Vicks vapor up, the sticky thing that you put in your nose when you have a cold. She would put that as a sticking agent. And then she would put this whole bunch of kumkum powder, the red powder. She was beautiful. She had a round moon face. And she had a sense of dignified beauty, I would say. And then she put me on her lap, and I was just sitting, this cozying with her. My grandfather comes in, and she had given me this small little banana, and I was drooling over it. I was so happy, I'm being so loved, and I was going to eat it. My grandfather comes. All of a sudden, I was like in shock. He comes, he looks at me, he asks me for the banana, and I said, no, this is mine. He actually literally hits my hand, my tiny little hand. The banana falls on the ground. He picks it up and he eats it right in front of me. Peels it and eats it because he was hungry. These are beasts. They come so hungry from work. And I look at my grandmother. My grandmother looks at me, and we had this moment of space we shared of absolute vulnerability. What do you do with men like that? What can you do? She consoled me. She protected me from violence. But I will never forget that incident. It was miserable. With food, even though she made all that food, fed them, they were beasts, right? Anyway, so piles of chapatis she used to make in the house. God bless her. Anyway, coming back to my mother's mother. Her name was Annapurni. Annapurni is also a name given to a mother who feeds children. Right? Annam means food. My mother's mother also, I had very, very few interactions, but absolutely precious. We connected at a very deep and mature level. My mother didn't like her. For some reason, they didn't get along. My grandfather, they were known to make a papadam business in a remote village in Aikudi, Tirunelveli district. And there was this little Subramaniam temple there next to the village. Very famous, even to this day, it is very famous. My mother's story is, she was one day upset, she was praying, and she got a mango from a tree or whatever. She loved that. Every day they had to go there, bathe in the river. It's called an Hanuman river. It's interesting because today is Hanuman Jayanti. And Hanuman was meant to have bathed there or taken rest before he went and met Ram and Sita. Some stories there. A tiny, beautiful little village full of good people again, spiritual people. Very peaceful. The climate was very good. There were fishes in that river, and they did payasam, paddy payasam it's called. They would pour the um, this sweet pudding. It's called paisam. They would make, some people would come and offer it to the gods, I guess, and they would some people would sponsor it. So would make this big, huge vessels of paisam, and then they would feed the poor people and all the little village kids that would come. On the steps they would wash it up, and on the steps they would feed these poor people, or anyone actually, poor to the rich. Even the people who sponsored would come and have that um, offering. They would eat from the steps of that river. I've had it a couple of times. Very tasty. Very divine. So my grandmother was Annapurni, and as her name goes, obviously my grandfather didn't have a job or anything. He had his own version of dominating male, just did puja every day. He would do his 1 hour, wake up in the morning, would wear his stinking silk dhoti, whatever. I mean, it had a stink. I mean, I recognize it. I'm not sure whether they even wash it. But anyway, God bless him. He never talked to me, never had a relationship with me. He would come and do his puja for an hour or so. By around 9:30, food's ready. They would eat lunch. Then I guess they would wait for a little snack in the evening. Again, very simple, sober living lifestyle. But life moved on. They had this papadam business. And the children had to go out and sell for a couple of annas in those times. They had come back, whatever. They had 10 children. Wow, yes. True story. I have met all my uncles and aunties, including my mother. There were totally 10 out of 10. All of them were born in that house. There was this tiny little house. I lived there later in my life. I lived in that house. Amazing little, again, it was a village in the Tirunelveli district. It was a village. It was not as congested as this Matunga house, this Mumbai house. It was very spacious, very spacious. That was a big relief. In the village they had all the space. It was still the same style though. There was a big street. It was called something, and then at the end there was a temple, and on both sides there were houses that led like a train. There were plenty of rooms, all the way leading to the end of the house. And if you're rich, you had a little cowshed at the end of the house, well, whatever. And then the way led to your fields, if you had one. Imagine having 10 children in that house with midwives. So the house, first there is like a balcony. There is sit out, very cute, like sit out you have. Then it was cemented later. Not sure if they had thatched roofs, but it was livable. And then there's an open sit out. Then you go inside, big windows with rods and a big balcony, kind of like a balcony, first room, and then there's a second balcony inside. Now going inside the house, nadai randam nadai, they're called some words. It's interesting, I forget. And then you have the big living room where you have the puja, things like that. And then comes a partitioned area. One side kitchen, and one side a big like a sunlit. There was an open skylight, but with rods. We would grow snake gourds and like creepers sometimes there. And there was a wash area. That was a wash area. And there was another big room. Patasala it was called. Then it led to the there was a cemented wood stove. I guess that's where she cooked food. Because you want the kitchen and the wash area to be nearby, I guess. We had gas when we had cylinders and gas. Later on, we moved it to the inner room, but that was in those days that was a cooking area, I guess, with wood fire stove. Because then you have the open area for the smoke to go. Then you had this pump. You had to pump water. Later they remodeled it a little bit, I think. We had the bathrooms, the toilet and the bathroom all the way at the end. So this was the house that 10 children were born. Her both elder sons went to Mumbai. They had good jobs, good education. 6 sons and 4 daughters. And all the daughters got the good cooking skills from my grandmother. And this is one tiny little story. Like I said, my grandfather was a little disconnected. He had his group. Don't know how my grandmother, grew up around that. But she was a very, very strong, tough. She was even a healer, I believe. One time she healed my ankle sprain. She took my sprain and she tapped the floor and it was supposed to go away. It did go away. Actually, it did go away. I don't know what happened, but it was probably her love for me. But so, I see. That's where the church concept comes from. She was liked by all. She was a good woman again, and she liked my principles, how I lived, wore my sari, supported me a lot. Later on, they bought another big house, and the first house after my uncles got rich, kind of, and they had this big house. The first house, that was our house. So the supremacy reigned in our family here also. The first house, that Matung also, it was the first house. Very famous family here also. Sons have gone to Mumbai, so they're well off. So now they're living in this big house. They had even upstairs, they had to climb the ladder up, pull up a small little door on the ceiling, pull it up and then walk in. I've lived there too for some time. So the story is all 10 kids would sit in a row. When my grandmother made a special dish like a potato fry, potato curry, she would make it into 10 balls, equal balls, and she would feed it to the kids. I don't know, with rice or chapati, I don't know what it. And then occasionally there was one naughty kid. One of my uncle would be eyeing one of the weaker ones to see after my grandmother's gone to, deceive them and take their potato curry away. And that's it, you don't get any more. You get deceived by your elder brother, get bullied. Can you imagine? I wouldn't call it poverty. I would call it they survived within their means. All of them are well off, Hopefully they remember what it was to be, to live without too much money or luxury. luxury. So, she lived for a long time. Uh, Went through some stuff. She had breast cancer, I think. Had eye operations. Oh my god. It's one after the other, one after the other. The sons took care. Loved her. Later on in my, like after my 12th, I had, when I went to the village for vacation, I studied in a hostel. I would go to this place where they had this typing institute. So I would go there, learn typing, and then come back to my grandmother's house for lunch. She would feed me. That was the only time I had kind of an intimate relationship with her. Otherwise, I don't have any other memories of her. Of my party. So I'm very blessed. God bless her soul too. So years later, when I was working in Chennai, I don't know, I don't have any other stories about this. All this, comedy stories of really working hard to go through school, study. Your pencil gets small, and you put it on top of a pen, and you use it. This is how people lived. They lived within their means. They knew how to survive with what they had. Brilliant, it was actually. Then later on in my life, I was working in Chennai and I was visiting Mumbai for work reasons, and I was put in this big hotel, opened the curtain, I watched Juhu Beach. And my grandmother passed away at that time, I think. And my mother had given my uncle's number to call them and send my condolences. And I talked to my grandfather. That's the only time I actually remember talking to him. People change as they grow old. I guess it's probably just age, or there is some kind of transformation happening. You're growing up, you're changing in some ways. There is a human being inside, and you have been growing up with God and people and children, so cannot underestimate anyone. And God bless my grandfather for that. Whatever he went through with 10 children, who knows? And I don't recall much violence between my mother's side, grandfather and grandmother, but I guess the children were not there enough to bring violence and naughtiness and whatnot. Just track back a little bit to my father's father, my Matunga grandfather. I told you, later on in his life, after my grandmother passed away, he sunk down because he didn't have anyone to boss around, throw his, I don't know, something changed in him. He didn't do it to anyone else. He missed her. I think he had a kind of repentance and a regret going on in his late 60s. And my uncle took him away to his place to live the rest of his life there, and until his death. And what the story was, his legs were rotten. And they used to say, he used to kick his wife, so he got that punishment. But I think he took that punishment well, and he kind of sobered down. Again, probably just due to age, or there was some kind of a mind-changing experience that was happening. I never really talked to him or had any relationship. Ever. Except for that banana incident. So he got his share of, he's probably born back in the family somewhere. But again, his legs were rotten, he couldn't walk, and I guess he paid his share. So I remembered that when I was talking about my mother's mother and my grandfather, because I called and my grandfather talks to me on my phone, and he recognized me, he knew my name. I was shocked actually. So I talked to him for a quite pretty long time, to my grandfather. Even at that age, he could hear, he could talk on the phone. And I was surprised, and I, blessed him. I was there for him. And he poured out his heart. He talked about my grandmother, he cried. He lamented she's gone, and he's sorry about all the wrong things. And I mean, it was unbelievably eye-opening experience. My heart just opened up. It was shocking to my family that I talked to my grandfather for so long and blessed his heart. And he said, it was very nice talking to me. So he must have seen something in me as a grandchild. I don't remember, like I said, any experience with him, but I'm sure we visited them. So it was a lovely ending there with my relationship, blessing my grandmother and my grandfather. It's coming back to mothers, We might have given birth to a child, we might have borne many pains, but we can carry this burden of bitterness and frustration. Let's change it, not for another generation. Children need to see the weakness of a mother, the vulnerability. I'm not saying fight with anger and violence and be a man. Bring out the beautiful, subtle, but profound, gentle, firm. Whatever a woman is, be that. Be a good daughter, be a good woman, be a good wife. Prepare yourself to be a good mother. It's very important for this world to change, for peace to bring in its presence, leading to joy and having respect for life itself, not just scraping through or understand, open your eyes to find the truth, have that revelation spring up within, so you may become the best good person that you're shaped to be for. In that, you don't have to carry the burden of your families. That's why I shared this for somebody who's come from such deep and complex energies and relationships. If I can do it, anyone can. At least I want to. At least that's my goal. Like I said, I'm a mother and I have a son. And I want to make best use of this opportunity to show myself as a good woman, a good mother, and bring that balance into this family. Bring the fathers to believe and on faith that, women are a beautiful thing to be adored and respected, and know life and awe at this. We're not that different from men. I mean, God just tweaked a man a little bit and then we became a woman. So how different can we be? You bring that balance between a man and a woman so children can be happy. They can create a generation. Children are made, you could see a child, you know their parents, right? They're made of parents, they're made of man and woman. And parents to rise up, grow up to, when we're talking about in those days, 15 and 16 and 10 children. We're struggling here for one kid. Come on, right? Even if that kid is carrying all the generational curses or whatever you call it, at this time and age, disregarding all the chaos around the world, pull yourselves up and find out what you are, why are you here, you're still alive, what are you doing? Don't join the chaos, don't join the dysfunction, don't join the... Create something beautiful in you, strengthen your spirits, and bring that child up to change the next generations, to live in love, harmony, peace. Let's bring that. Everybody's praying for peace, but some work has to be done, right? And that has to begin in a family. It can be done. In God's presence, we all carry the same God's energy inside of us. We're all the same. So then where is the space for unnecessary tantrums and oh my God. Let's stop fighting. Let's be beautiful in whatever we are, and let's let others be beautiful too, huh? Can we join hands and pray for all the families to be able to do that? Realize that we're so much blessed compared to what it used to be before. It's kind of like an evolution. Spirituality is available in any way, shape or form. Mostly what's inside, what's within you. And if we can't be a human being, exhibit nature of virtues and characters that reflect peace and beauty and happiness, not fear, not all the time afraid somebody's going to push you down, oppress you. We need to be free of that energy. And I bless those mothers still alive, and they're going to be gone soon or later. God bless their souls. May they be free in the spirit. May they relieve the next generations of that energy to carry forward. We don't need that. We can work it out. We're smart. We're educated. We can create ways to handle anything. We don't need to be perfect. Parents do make mistakes. Children do make mistakes. But choosing to live, choosing to accept each other in the family, let's keep that going. For creation's sake, for God's sake, and for all the beloved mothers' sake. Amen.